Hello everyone, I'm Erin Spinagle, and welcome to The Teacher Who Draws. I am so excited for this to be our first episode, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you ways that you can create art with simple supplies that you may have in your desk at school or at home. So since this is West Virginia Day week, our very first project together is going to be how to draw a cardinal. And to draw this, you're just going to need a simple sheet of drawing paper, some colored pencils, and if you have them, some chalk or some chalk pastels, but that's okay. We're going to use what we have to make beautiful art. So let's get everything together, because together we're going to make it. All right, everybody, let's get ready to draw our beautiful West Virginia state bird, the cardinal. So, as I mentioned before, we're going to be using colored pencil and a little bit of chalk pastel at the end to draw this today. I'm using my Prismacolor Scholar pencils and a couple of my Prang colored pencils today, but you can use whatever you have on hand. Even if you just have crayons, you could still do that. You could still use the same colors. We can make it work. So, before we get started, let's look at some of the shapes that we see in our cardinal. And this is a stock picture I've got from Pixabay, and this is going to be our reference photo for our project. So I just put this picture inside of a sheet protector, and I've got a little dry erase marker here, a very little dry erase marker, and we're going to kind of look at the shapes that we see in our cardinal before we start drawing. So I see like an oval shape here for the head. Now this marker is not going to show up very well, unfortunately, but I'm going to go with it. We can at least watch how I trace these. On here I see a triangle for the beak. I see also like a point or a triangular shape back here for his mohawk or his faux hawk, that crest that all cardinals have. We have like a pointed oval shape here. Oh, this marker is very dry, but that's okay. And of course we have a longer oval for his body, and then a very narrow shape back here for his tail. So I'm doing this right now, and I'm kind of tracing what my shapes will be. So I think about how I'm going to be putting in the basic shapes that will make up my cardinal when I get started. He's got his feet, and then down here, this is going to be a piece of wood or a piece of a branch. So I'm thinking about how that's going to be kind of more, not as rounded, a little more straight lines, texture. So being able to do this either on a sheet protector or just doing finger tracing on your paper before you get started helps you think about what you're going to draw before you begin. And also helps you think about how large you want to draw things or how you will draw them to scale. Those are all words we'll talk about as we start doing these videos together. All right, so I'm going to take my reference photo and set it over to the side. And I'm going to move this out of the way, my project that I have shown you. Now, I am turning my paper landscape for this project. You could do this cardinal if you turn your paper portrait style, that would be fine. I'm going to do it long ways just so I have a little more room to draw my cardinal out this way. But either way would work. It can be your choice. Okay. So I'm about to get started. I'm just going to finger trace one more time here where I want him to be, and I'm not going to worry too much about it being exact. I want to get the cardinal's likeness, but it's okay if it's not exactly like the ones that I just showed you. Even the project I did to prepare for this, it's okay if we make slight changes as we go. Sometimes we learn different things or we see things with our brain differently each time we do it. All right, so I'm going to get started here. And if you notice, I don't have an eraser in sight, do I? I'm just going to start with a very light colored pencil. This is peach. You could use maybe a tan or a beige color if you wanted to. But I'm not going to do any erasing. I am going to just make my lines work for me. Whatever I put on this paper, even if it makes me kind of take a deep breath, and I want to say the M word, mistake. No, we don't really need to think about it as a mistake. It's just maybe not what we didn't expect our hand and our brain to come up with. So as I get started here, I'm going to very lightly, and this may be kind of hard to see on camera, but you can watch the motion of my hand. If it's not coming up right away, you don't see it, I'm going to draw very lightly because I'm thinking about where I want to put the shape. So I'm thinking about this is about where his head's going to be, and then he's going to have his body. Now I'm saying he because the male cardinals are red. They're a bright, showy color to attract a mate. Female cardinals, which are also the state bird, they are brown. They have a little bit of red on them, but when we associate that bright red cardinal as what a cardinal looks like, but baby cardinals and female cardinals are a nice brown shade. They're very pretty. They really are. Cardinals are beautiful birds. So I'm putting in where the body is going to be, and then I'm going to kind of think about how his wings going to come up a little bit more here. So I've got that oval shape. Now, do you notice how I'm not going like this to make my lines? When I use a colored pencil, I hold it on its side. So I get a nice, soft, sketchy line. Soft and sketchy is what I like to say when I do this. So I've got his wings in here. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to be doing his tail feather. So I've got his tail feather in. About. All right, so I've got the body of my bird, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to think about where I want the feet to be, and I can always go back and adjust this. Again, this is very soft and sketchy. That front leg's going to be look a little bit longer than my back leg because of space. It's not as close. It's further away from me. All right, I'm going to go ahead while I'm down here, and I'm going to mark very lightly where the branch that he's sitting on is, and you don't have to be super picky about what this looks like. We're going to go back and add a lot more to it. All right, so I got my basic shape up here. I'm going to come up and I'm going to put in about where I want my crest to be, or his faux hawk or mohawk. It's more fun to call it that, isn't it? And then let's get where his beak will be. Now, his beak is actually very thick and pointy because cardinals, they like sunflower seeds. And sunflower seeds have a nice hard shell. So they've got to have a nice thick beak to be able to crack those seeds open that have those thick shells. Okay, so I've got about my soft, sketchy lines in. I might want to go ahead and connect them a little bit more. All right. And like I said, I'm not going to worry about this. You might be thinking, well, cardinal's not this color. I'm not going to be too worried about that right now, about it not being exactly the same colors, because I will be putting several layers of colored pencil on this. But it won't take me as long as you might think. And won't take you as long as you might think either. This is the hard part, if there is a hard part. Okay, so we've got our outline in there. Now let's go ahead and start laying down some color. All right, so I'm going to start out with something that might surprise you, but I'm not going to start out with my red. Nope. I am going to start out with my orange. And actually, before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and mark here where his black feathers around his chinny chin go. And I'm going to kind of mark where his eye is going to be. So I'm just making a circle, and I may even go ahead and make a little circle in there, like where the gleam of the eye will be. It may look kind of funny right now, but just want to keep that in mind before I start shading this in. Okay, so I'm going to be using an orange, because even though my cardinal looks like he's a red bird, or my teller says, well, he's red. If you look here at this picture for a minute, there are actually lots of different colors, lots of different shades of red. There's value, there's darker areas and lighter areas. So I want to make sure that I catch all those different colors so he looks more lifelike. That is my favorite way to draw. I like to make things look real. Even if they aren't exactly real, I want to try to make it look as realistic as possible. So I'm seeing some lighter areas in through here. So I'm going to try to add some lighter areas or have like a base layer of color on my cardinal in those places. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to start up here around his face. I'm going to add a little bit of color up through here. And don't worry, I know sometimes we get started on things and it's like, oh my gosh, am I doing this right? Is this what it's supposed to be? But you know what? I'm going to make his wing a little bit bigger through here. It's a work in progress. So it may not look exactly the way you think it's going to look at first, but you have to be patient with yourself. And you have to be patient with your pencils. Your pencils will work hard for you, but you have to be willing to let them do the work. All right, so I'm thinking about how I want to extend that wing. I'm looking at my picture. I wish I could get the picture in the same shot as this as I'm working. So I'm adding my color, adding my lighter areas, because cardinals are really, they're not like a dark red. They're like a bright stop sign red. I can't miss a red cardinal. Okay, and I might even go ahead and put a little line here for his beak. I might even go ahead and add a little bit of color, but I'm not going to color the beak in solid orange. You see how I'm being very soft and sketchy and how my pencil moves back and forth like this? I want to make sure that I leave enough paper showing through so that I can layer more color and you can see all the different colors that make up my cardinal. And I'm not going to really get this back leg right there very orange because I know that's going to be a darker area. All right, so now I'm going to go in with my, changing my mind here, yellow. And I was like, what? Yellow? Well, his beak's got some lighter areas on it, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to my orange right here. And I can always go back and layer some more orange on top of it if I want. And I might add a little bit of yellow here because yellow and red make orange. So these colors go together nicely. I'm going to go through here. Scratch. Now also, do you see how far back I'm holding my pencil? I don't have it up here by the point. I'm letting my hand rest on my paper and I'm letting my pencil do most of the work. I know you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, this is a red cardinal and we're adding orange and yellow. Where is this going? Trust the process. I promise. It gets better. Okay, so I've got some yellow in there. And like I said, you might be thinking, doesn't look like any bird I've seen. I'm going to go into my red. Now this red that I'm using, it's a very, almost too dark of a red. So I like that I've started my layers of my yellow and my orange. I'm going to kind of concentrate on the areas that are a little bit darker. That means they're not going to be getting as much light. So I might go up here around his head and add a little bit of red here. But I'm going to start really picking up my pencil. So I'm using the side of my pencil, but I am making very short strokes because feathers aren't long. Feathers are not fluffy fur. They're short. So I am really picking up my pencil now. Now that I've got that first layer on, I'm really going to pick it up. And we don't use the tip of our pencil. We use our pencil on the side because it saves the point and we get a softer line and you can just keep adding more layers to your work instead of having it be really dark from the very beginning or having so much color on your paper that you can't add anything else to it. Let's really get him down here at his base. So by doing this, by keeping our pencil marks short and soft, it gives us a lot more room, a lot more time that we can go back and add more to our work. Okay, Sassy, now he's starting to look more like a bird, isn't he? Like our cardinal bird. He looked like a bird, we just know what kind of bird he was there for a minute. Okay. So I'm getting some number. We're trying to get the likeness of our cardinal. We don't have to worry about it being exact. I'm going to put in where his wing is and where his tail is. All right, so we've added our red with our short strokes, and you're still thinking, well, this still doesn't look like any cardinal that I've seen. Okay, we're getting there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some red orange. Now, if you only had a red that was kind of red orangey, that's great. You don't have to do this stuff. But since I added that darker red, I feel like he's going to need a little more color on his chest up through here. Remember, short, soft strokes. Because if you were to look at him up super close, you would realize that he is made of all these very tiny feathers. I'm going to get up here on his crest. So when I was about, I don't know how old the people who are listening to this are, when I was a kid, my grandfather gave me a book. And it was like a little bird guide. It had all these birds in it. And I loved looking at all the different birds and all the different places in the United States where the birds came from. And then I started to draw them because I was just a kid who liked to draw. And I'm making some longer strokes on his wings because the feathers on the wings are a little bit longer. I still have this book actually that I'm talking about here, and I really enjoy drawing the cardinal. So it's kind of like always been a special thing that I enjoy drawing. A little bit of red orange back here, and like I said, if you had just a red that was a little more orangey, hey, you might be a little bit ahead of us, and that's okay. All right, so we've got a good base color down. Now we can keep adding some more layers. We aren't anywhere near finished yet. But now what I can do is I'm going to go back in with my orange, and I think I can add a little more to his beak. Might make that line a little bit darker to show where his beak goes shut. I feel like I made the beak a little bit bigger than I would have liked, but that's okay. And we do things a little bit differently every time we draw. We learn different things. If his beak's a little bit bigger this time, maybe next time I do this, I'll make his beak a little bit smaller. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to layer some orange with some short strokes over his chest and into his wings. Hold it back. If you hold it back, the less control you have, sometimes the more control you have. That sounds kind of silly, but it's true. I'm going to fill that in back here, come up. This way now, I'm trying to stay away from the eye area because that's where his mask of black feathers is. So I can go back and add more color around those when I'm ready. Short strokes, short strokes. Okay, and then I could go back and add a little more red here as I go. But now what we're going to do, this is going to be one of those record scratch moments like where you go, what? We're going to start adding some darker colors besides just the reds that you see here, because there are some shadowy areas on there and we want to be able to show that he is not just one big flat object. So what I am going to do, I am going to grab a purple. I know you're thinking, nope, he's not purple. Well, I'm going to grab a purple. This is a very dark purple. If you have a really dark brown, you could even use that too. If you like, maybe that won't feel as scary, because what I'm going to do, where his mask is, I am going to make very short strokes. Like you see there, sometimes I block the camera view. It's a bad habit of mine because I'm left-handed. And if you're left-handed, I'm sure you understand. And I am going to add some short strokes down his chest here. Now you're thinking, Okay, doesn't a cardinal have black feathers, not purple? This makes no sense. Make it make sense. Yes, but you know what? Black actually has lots of different colors in it. And so does white. So I'm going to add a couple little feathers around the eye. And I'm just marking it. Don't worry, we're going to add some black over here. We're not going to leave him purple, are we? I just want to go ahead and mark where the eye is. That's a little large, but it'll be okay. I'm going to come in here a little bit maybe. So come in, take your time. This is not a race. Okay, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to mark the eye area. Now it looks a little bit more like a bird, doesn't it? It's coming there. It's coming along. Add a little bit more around the face if you'd like. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my purple, and this is where you're going to think, oh no, oh no. Now I'm going to add some short strokes to my feathers. Now, listen to me. There are shady areas, or there's areas on our cardinal that are not getting as much light. So I want to represent those areas. And I'm going to put it in with purple. You're thinking, no, not purple, woman. But I'm telling you, once we get going here, once we get further along, you're going to really see how this all makes sense. Because we will layer some brown and a little bit of black. I like to use black sparingly when I draw because, like I said, we can take other colors and overlap them, layer them together, and get that same effect as if we used black, and it's not so heavy. Okay, because we want it to look realistic. We don't want it to look so, like, flat on our paper. Okay, and I'm going to take my purple. I'm going to add some purple through here to his chest. And then I'm going to come down here on the leg, and I am going to add a little bit of purple on his legs. And that's, I know, thinking, what did I get into watching this? But I promise, stay with me. It does get better. We're going to add a little bit of purple down here, too, because this leg is in the background. It's shady. And then I'm going to add a lot of it back here at the tail, making my short strokes. All right. He's really got a defined, you can really see where his wing is not a part of his body. It's not attached. He can spread it out. Okay, so I'm going to come in through here. And I think I'm about done with my purple for right now. I'm going to go back and add some red so you're not so, oh my golly, what kind of bird is this? Okay, so we've got our shadowy areas in there. I'm trying to make sure this project is something that anybody, whether you're 8 or 108, could attempt. So we'll see how I do. I think I can only get better at doing these. So what do you think? I hope that what I'm showing you can be done by many people who just want to draw. But I'm going to now go in, I'm going to take a red orange, or take my red again, and I'm going to lightly kind of go over those areas that are purpley. And you can start to press a little bit harder, but don't get too carried away. I'm going to try to clean up his beak a little bit. Remember, we did this without any erasing. So I'm going to, with my red orange, I'm trying to make his beak stand out a little bit more. Kind of wish his beak didn't have that hump in it, but that's okay. I'm going to work with it. For today, his beak's going to have a little bit of a hump in it. But I'm adding that little bit of red orange just to the point. Not colored in the entire thing. I want you able to see all the the yellow and orange that I put on there. I'm going to come in here, and I really want to kind of press a little bit harder and define where his head is, because, you know, he can turn his head. So his head's kind of not separate from his body, but it's got some movement to it. I'm going to come in here, and I'm really going to start to add that color to his chest. But like I said, don't press with all your might, and please hold your pencil back. It makes a huge difference. Okay. And come down here and get his little foot, or leg rather. Okay. And work on this a little bit. But do you see how it's all starting to come together now? It's not so... What is this? Sometimes it's important just to stay the course. Sometimes you think you're doing an awful job or you're not doing as well as you think you should be doing, when really you just haven't given it enough time. I'm really going to need to darken that up back there. Okay, so those are all things. I'm trying to show you how I talk to myself as I make things too. Now I need this line a little too dark right there, so I'm going to go ahead and put maybe another color over that. Okay, so I'm layering some orange. And there might be steps that you choose to skip because you think, well, mine's already looking too orangey. Maybe I pushed a little too hard with that orange in the beginning. That's okay. You can use your own judgment to make your cardinal look the way you want it to look or the way you feel it should look. I went a little too heavy in through here, but that's okay. Like I said, we will learn something and we will improve things each time we do them. I'm going to come down here and get his belly again. I love the different sounds that cardinals make when they sing. They really have one of the sweetest little songs. Actually, their songs sound different sometimes, depending on what they have to say, I guess. All right, so I've got my red in. I may end up going back and adding some more. I don't know, but I'm going to go back to my my shadowy areas, and I am going to use a dark brown. So this is actually a prang colored pencil. This is a dark brown. You could use any brand, Crayola, it does not matter. I'm not promoting a brand right now. I am just sharing with you what I've got, and I'm using what I had on hand. So, like I said, you could do this with crayons if you wanted to. I am just going over those purpley areas, even around his face here. I don't know if I'm going to hit the eye area again. I'm trying to make these areas get a little bit darker. And then I go over to this beak, and I might just make that a little bit more defined. Not going to add a lot of color to it. His beak really doesn't have a lot of areas that look brown to me. And I come in here to the wings. His wings really are darker on the back. His wings are kind of like the darkest area of his body. I really kind of want to make that darker because I went a little too heavy with my red there at one point. But do you notice how I say that to myself? I say, I went a little heavy with my red at that point. I'm not saying that I'm a terrible artist or that I shouldn't do this, or I'm not starting over. I'm making it work. So, and that's kind of the attitude I'm trying to show you that we need to have when we're working, whether it's on drawing a cardinal or learning our times tables, or if you're an adult and you have to learn how to change the oil in your car, whatever it is, we just have to be patient with ourselves and make it work and take our time and try different things to try to get the effect that we want. I'm going to add some darker color back here because his tail does look like it's a little bit darker. All right, our bird is coming right along. Add some darker feathers in through here. Okay, so I think I'm about ready to add my black. I saved black towards the end because I do not want to make my lines too heavy. Now, we're not going to outline him or anything. I'm going to start around his beak, and I'm going to be picking my pencil up a lot, but I'm going over that purple and brown. Actually, I don't think I put the brown here, but that's okay. I'm going to start adding his short little feathers, short little marks. Now, I do want a little bit more control here, so I am holding my pencil closer to the point because I want these marks to be very precise. Precise kind of means like exact. Okay, so I'm going down his chest. Don't want to go too far. He doesn't have like a Santa Claus beard there. I'm going to go around this eye. I always save the eye area towards the end because the eyes are like the windows of our soul. We want the eyes to be sharp. Focus on what I'm doing there. Yeah, there we go. So I like to say them towards the end or when I know I'm definitely done with that area. Now that's not true for everything that I draw, but when it comes to certain things like birds, I kind of want to make sure I do that towards the end. Okay, so I'm coming along here, and I like that the purple is showing a little bit because it makes my black, or like that dark area, not look as heavy. So let's see here. Yeah. Come down. All right. So now listen, I'm going to hold my pencil back further now because I'm going to gently take my black over those shady spots. Gently. I'm barely touching my paper because I do not want my bird to look like he's got areas on the other black spots. So I'm just very gently touching my paper because they do have some very small areas of darker feathers, lighter feathers. If I look on this picture, I'm seeing that he's got some darker areas on his wings, especially here where they meet in this point. There we go. All right. I'm going to very gently come in here. Like I said, I'm going to go back and forth very lightly. I am barely touching my paper. I'm going to work on his little legs here, underneath his belly. This area is really dark under here. It's got some darker areas here. I'm going to scratch back and forth a little bit. Make this leg a little bit darker. This leg is darker than the other one. And I have some other things I'm going to add here towards the end. I'm going to make his tail. All right. You see, look how far we've come. We've made a lot of progress. And like I said, don't give up. Don't feel that just because maybe this is the first time you've ever drawn a bird, drawn a cardinal. Don't worry about it not looking exactly like mine. I'm going to go back with my red now. This is my red. I'm going to add a little bit of color to here. Now, as you get further on, you see now we've built up a lot of layers to our cardinals, so we can be a little more firm with our marks. We can push a little bit harder because what we're doing now, we're burnishing. So we'll talk more about this, but paper has tooth. I know, you think, is it smiling at me? No. Paper has tooth. It has like a texture to it. And that texture helps hold more color. The more tooth, the more color it can hold. Think of it that way. So, and I'm just using drawing paper today, but as you build up the layers and you don't press very heavy at first, as you go or towards you get towards the end, or we're going to say, yep, I've done enough for today, you can start to push harder to fill up the tooth. And it's got a really fancy word. It's called burnishing. So you are learning all kinds of vocabulary doing this cardinal for West Virginia Day. And if you're not from West Virginia and you are doing this cardinal with us, that's okay too. All right, I want to make his beak stand out a little bit more without putting a hard black line. I'm going to maybe take this light brown and just hit the point of it there. And maybe use a yellow and fill that in. Yeah, I don't think I want to go any further than that. I really think I want to make it a little more orange. All right. And maybe add a little bit. Yeah, okay, that's more than enough. I think I'm gonna leave the beak alone. All right, so I've got my cardinal about where I want him for right now. Another thing you can try to do, if this works with certain white pencils, it does not work with all white color pencils. I will tell you, this is a Prismacolor Scholar White pencil. You could always try it with what you got. I might add a couple areas of white to his feathers and to his little legs here, maybe even to his tail. It makes them look like they're catching the light. I'll go back with my black and I can darken this up now. Remember, I'm pushing harder and I'm closer to the point because I want to be very precise. See what I'm doing there? I don't want to block your view. All right, I think we can move on. For right now, you can darken up those areas. Anything you think that will make him pop off the page. I'm going to move on to his little stump, his tree branch that he is sitting on. So I started with like that peachy color, and I'm going to kind of build up from there. And we don't have to be really picky about this because the emphasis in this project is not the branch, the stump. The emphasis is on the cardinal, so we want him to get all the attention. I am just going to take my peachy color and I'm going to just make like little short, I call them angry marks, but like rough marks. Just jiggity jaggedy back and forth for where there is texture on this marvelous piece of wood that he has perched himself on. And then I'm going to take my next color up. It's like a light brown. It's called terracotta, but if you're using whatever you're using, colored pencil wise or crayon wise, it's just like a light brown. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to try to fill in with some more rough, angry marks. Because I want it to look like wood. It is wood. And again, I'm holding it back. And I'm not using the tip. You know, that will save you from sharpening your colored pencils. If you've noticed, I didn't have to sharpen my colored pencils at all. I did sharpen them before I started this, but I didn't have to sharpen them when I was doing the cardinal because I was using the side of my pencil. That saves the point. I'm going to get up here, but this part of the wood is going to be a little bit lighter, so I'm not going to add a bunch of brown just yet. I'm going to take a darker brown, and then I'm going to really go in here, and like I said, we're not going to get every single little mark to make it look exactly like the piece of wood or branch that he's sitting on. We just want to get its likeness. Okay, and I'm going to get in here. Colored pencils have always been my favorite. I have learned to like different types of materials to create art. But I gotta tell you, nothing makes me as happy as making something out of colored pencil. Alright, so I'm pushing a little bit harder in some areas because I want to show that it's bark and that it's going to be rough if you touched it. But again, I pick my pencil up a lot. And I really want to make sure that the lighter color still shows through. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to very lightly scratch that on there, some lighter color. And I'm ready for the grand finale here. And you could go back and you could work this out so it looks exactly the way you want it. But I just wanted to get it in there so you have your cardinal perched on something. We're going to go in and we're going to add some black. And again, we're going to keep picking up our pencil a lot, making our rough, jaggedy marks. You can add some of those rough, jaggedy marks up here. We want to keep that a little bit lighter. All right. And like I said, we're starting to burnish or get into the tooth. So now we don't have to be so careful. You can push a little bit harder. So keep this part a little bit lighter. This is like where the tree branch broke off. I will tell you, if you're doing this in crayon, it might be a little bit harder to get those same marks that we're doing because crayon may sometimes go around and around or we're used to using crayon, making that going around and around to color things in. But you could definitely use it. You could do any of these projects just with crayons. Okay, so I think we are about ready for the final part. I'm going to go and add a little, make his mask there a little bit darker. We are about ready to do our background. Now, to do the background, I would not recommend, see, now I'm going to really go in here at the very end and just add a couple little feathery lines for my birds to look, as authentic as possible. All right, so I would not recommend coloring in the background all over with colored pencils because your hand will get so tired. And then you're going to, get things on your paper that kind of make you feel like you didn't take your time or it didn't turn out as well as you thought it would. So I don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do, I am going to use what's called chalk pastel. Now, if you do not have chalk pastel, don't worry. You could just make regular chalk work if you wanted to. And if you really, really wanted to, you can just leave the background alone. Or you could take a crayon and peel the paper back and lay it on its side, and you could shade in the background a little bit. That would work too. So just because I show you something a certain way doesn't mean that's the only way it needs to be done. I'm just going in here with some dark brown and cleaning it up a little bit. Okay, so never feel like you can't do a certain project on here because you don't have exactly what I'm doing. You can do that fancy word called improvise. Okay, so what I am going to do, I'm going to use some chalk pastels, and I don't need all the colors. I am just going to take a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit of blue. And what you do when you're going to use these as a background, because I just want to have like a soft background so my emphasis stays on my cardinal, lay it on its side. And we are just going to, very lightly add some color. Yep. And I'm just going to rub it on there in some certain places. Don't worry too much about what it looks like right now. No, this is kind of like at the very beginning thing. What are we doing? Coloring our bird orange. Make some green, and then I'm going to take some yellow. I am going to rub some yellow on there. I will show you several ways that you can make backgrounds quickly without wearing your hand out or wearing your supplies out. All right, so we've got our yellow, and then I think I'm going to take, I don't want to do something a little bit different than last time. The first one I did there to show you as an example. Let me try. Oops, that's not working off. I'm trying something different. There we go. I might try this teal blue. So this is going to look a little bit different than the reference photo that I showed you, but that's okay. So I'm just going to rub some color. You might even think, hey, I kind of like the way this looks as is. But when we have chalk or chalk pastel, we want to rub it into the paper. We don't want to wipe it off. We want to rub it in to the paper so that it doesn't go anywhere. And you can always go back and adjust this, but we got something on there to get started. So I like to take 2 of my fingers, no more than 2, and we're going to rub. We are not wiping, okay? We're definitely not going to wipe over our cardinal. We're going to start in the corner. I'm going to start here since I'm left-handed. We're just going to kind of rub the color in. And you're going to pick up some color on your finger as you do this. That's a good thing, because you can rub that color into your paper. And I did this on regular drawing paper. It's not anything fancy. They do make special paper for pastels and things like that. You don't necessarily need that. We might talk about different types of paper in another video. But yeah, I'm just using regular drawing paper. Came out of a drawing pad of paper. So they should stick A-okay. Now, I know you want to kind of get close so you don't have this white halo around your bird. Just do it carefully and kind of use the chalk that's already on your fingers to get close to him as you go around. You don't want to color over it. But if you notice here, I'm trying not to use all my fingers. I try just to use 2 and keep those my goopy, chalky fingers. Kind of keeps you from getting them all over yourself and other things too, if you do that. Unless you're trying to keep the colors separate, then I might use different fingers. But for this, I'm just going to pick 2 fingers, rub it in. Notice I'm not doing the windshield wiper, because if you do the windshield wiper, it gets kind of smeary. We don't want it to look smeary. We just want it to look like it's a very soft, focused background. All right, now I got a little scratchy right here because I didn't grab the side of it, but that's okay. It's going to make it look more unique. Now, if I wanted to, or if you wanted to, if you want to add some more color after you have that rubbed in, you can go back and do that. Maybe you want it to look a little more yellow. Maybe you want it to look a little more green. Just lay it on its side. You don't use the end like this. We're not using it like a pencil. We're laying it on its side. If you wanted to, I wonder what, sometimes you just got to experiment on camera, friends. I wonder what if I added a little bit of blue in here. We're going to find out. It's kind of like there's only one way to find out. All right. We're going to take our fingers, rub it back in. I don't know, I kind of like that blue. It's a good contrast. Remember, you get chalk on your fingers, you can use it for other areas. It's a nice little contrast there. All right, get in here around my bird as much as I dare to go. All right, so we're about finished our cardinal. And whatever you've created, I hope you're proud of it. Because you can always go back and try it again. And you can practice doing it very quickly, or you can practice it and take your time. But each time you do it, I bet you will try something different with your pencils or your pastels, whatever you're using. And each time you do it, you're going to be a little bit better. Or you'll get a little more confident. All right, so we are about finished. I'm going to add a little bit of a darker brown here to my branch. And we have finished our cardinal for West Virginia Day. He's a pretty handsome guy, isn't he? I would love to see him out my window. I don't know about you. All right, friends. We did it. Okay, so this is our completed cardinal. And now you have a beautiful piece of artwork that you can share with someone that you would like to see your beautiful work. Wow, I hope you enjoyed doing this cardinal with me today. I can't wait to see your beautiful work. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button so that you get notifications for when our next episodes will be. So thank you for joining the Teacher Who Draws today. We'll meet again soon. Until then, be kind, shine bright, and make the world colorful. Remember, every day is a good day to draw.